Another day, another remake teaser to tear apart in ridiculous detail. Now admittedly, this one is rather short and it's really just a single screenshot and a brief portion of a single track, but hey, I'm the guy with a 5-minute long analysis of the importance of the meatbag, so that's not going to be an issue. Without delay, let's get straight into it. The Christmas teaser that the fine folk at Alchemia have given us, and yes, I know I'm late but oh well, shows us something that we've all been waiting for. A full shot of what we'll see upon entering the old camp in the remake. I think we can agree that the old camp is most people's favorite. It's the first camp that we visit, our good pal Diego lives here and tells us that it's the best place for new guys, and seeing as he's the first friend that we make, it's obvious that a lot of people will have fond memories of this place. It's also the camp that solidifies a huge aspect of Gothic's atmosphere that separates it from other games and even from its sequels. This place feels like a prison. The stronger inmates bully, extort and beat up the weaker inmates for fun and profit, as we experience personally with Bullet and Bloodwind. I mean hell, the guard at the entrance will beat us up just for being snarky, setting up the tone for this place perfectly. The weaker ones simply try to survive, while the more ambitious types desperately try to climb the ranks, like we see with Grimm. And the whole community relies heavily on a system of favors and respect, much like a real prison. Nobody's going to give you an easy time just because you're the new guy. You're not the chosen one, you're prison trash. To quote a great lawyer and politician,
"The only way to get by in this place is to get ourselves some respect."
You learn very quickly that mouthing off to the wrong people isn't exactly a great idea, and that you need to get yourself in a position of respect, and fast. Because of that, our stay in the old camp, even if we join another camp later on, is a quintessential part of Gothic, and had it been another camp that we visited first, I think it would have changed the atmosphere of the game greatly. Therefore, it is crucial for the developers to get that first impression right. Now, what are my first impressions of a first impression of the player's first impression? Well, I wouldn't be myself if I didn't start off with a brief section of the things I like, followed by a lengthy section of the things I don't like. Now, that doesn't mean that what we see is mostly bad, but if you haven't noticed by now, I do love to elaborate on why something doesn't work.
You said some very unkind things.
With that out of the way, I think that in general things are looking pretty good. A lot of people are pointing out the odd and stilted looking NPCs, but do keep in mind that this is a work in progress. The routines aren't done, their placement isn't final, and they're literally just there so that the place doesn't look weird and empty. Overall, I think that is promising, though there are some odd changes, such as this rooftop being gone, which... why was that changed? I mean, did someone at the studio just happen to dislike this particular roof? You can see it clearly in this comparison composed by Asnen, thank you Asnen, which showcases some other changes as well. We now have this small roof where the stage used to be, and the stage on which the In Extremo would actually play an in-game concert. Remember when video games used to be awesome? Has been moved to where the little body of water used to be in the original. I'm not sure what's the rationale behind this change, especially since that was the place where the diggers used to go to take care of hygiene, as poor as it is in a place and setting like this. But perhaps as the camp was extended, that little pool of water was moved slightly further and simply isn't visible. Some people have complained about the architecture, and I get it because this is one of those things that's hard to get right. I mean, you do have like a 4-polygon block as a source, and you have to do something about it without changing the overall feel too much. And I think that the devs did a good job in that department. I like the added detail of what appears to be carved Shadow Beast's head incorporated into this arc. Now let's move over to the primary complaint that I have here. You heard me express it before, most of you agreed, some of you disagreed, and that's all fine, but I just have to say it. I don't like the color palette. I hate to repeat myself on this, but again, I really dislike how everything has been toned down and reduced to 50 shades of beige. However, I actually had an opportunity to speak with a developer on this matter. Those of you that frequent the official Gothic Discord server may have seen that exchange and know who it is I'm speaking of. I'm talking about the one and only, irreplaceable, the original veteran of the series, Kai Rosenkranz. Me and Kai had a great little discussion about the subject. By the way, if you were to tell the little audio man that one day he would discuss the Gothic remake with Kai Rosenkranz, it would have blown my micro head out. And we came to some agreements, while slightly disagreeing about some details. And it's fine, a conversation is important, and I'm highly grateful that the devs engage with the community and listen to the feedback. For example, Kai mentioned that the blazing scorching sun that you could see in the previous screenshots was indeed toned down as it drowned out all the other colors. And that's great, I think it's a huge improvement. Furthermore, as Kai and other developers have stressed before, this is just one weather setting that we'll see in the game, and so what I'm saying here doesn't apply to every single type of weather and lighting. I don't really like it. There's too much haze and distance fog applied to it, and Kai mentioned that it's to give this place a feeling of size and largeness. My problem with it is that it's a little bit overdone, it drowns out the other colors still, and overall, it just doesn't make me think of the old camp in Gothic 1. It makes me think of the glowing sea in Fallout 4. Even regular areas in Fallout 4 suffer from similar issues.
I'd like to trade with you.
some items.
Good!
So while I understand that this is just one weather pattern, I just don't think that it's a particularly good one. And until we see some other ones, that's all we really have to go on. Kai also showcased this little color comparison, and overall I think there's an issue with how everything appears to be toned down and blended into similar shades. It's especially visible with red here. I think that the textures themselves could use a saturation boost. I hope it's something that's remedied before the release, but it's not a deal breaker. Now another thing that this teaser gave us is a taste of the remixed soundtrack, the old camp theme, and again, this is why it's so good to have Kai on the team. Who knows the original soundtrack of Gothic 1 better than its creator? However, I'll have to give you a small disclaimer. Despite being the audio man, I don't actually know a whole lot about the theory of music.
You're not a god?
So I can't analyze this track from an objective professional point of view. All I can really do is give you my purely subjective feelings on the matter. And having said that, it was kind of grating to me the first time I've heard it, especially this part right here. I don't know, it feels like it goes low when it should go high, again very clearly not a professional here. But I have softened on it a little bit since. I don't think it's terrible, but I think the reason it was so grating to me is because it feels off. And I had just been playing Chronicles of Myrtana Archolos, and I felt that it did a slightly better job of remixing the original tracks. I don't mean any disrespect to Kai, he is obviously a very talented composer, and I have stated multiple times that he just casually created one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time. I just think that this particular piece doesn't sound as good as it could. However, similar to the weather, this is just one of many variants of this track that we'll get. There will be other variations, depending on such things as the time of day or whether we're in a particularly busy part of the camp. I trust Kai, and most folks seem to have enjoyed this little remix, so overall, I rate this teaser rather positively. That's it for today, guys. I hope you have a good day, good week, and maybe even a good month. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll hear you next time.